processes are lived within a company. And so now it's about, well, what is the purpose of budgeting in an organization, and how it is linked to responsibility accounting? Because when we have that bottom-up approach, each and every manager has responsibilities, for example, a cost center or a division, and so the responsibility and budgeting is something which is clearly linked. And so the question is, how should cost relate to, and not only cost, but also revenues and investments relate to responsibilities? And you know, there are three kinds of responsibility. First of all, the cost responsibility. This is for everybody who is responsible for cost. Second, revenue responsibility, particularly in sales-oriented departments. And then we'll have departments which have responsibilities for both cost and revenues. And these are, how is it called? No, profit centers. Profit centers have responsibilities for revenues and for cost. So the responsibility is a profit center. And finally, we have investment centers where managers not only have responsibility for ongoing cost and revenues, but also for the investment decisions, or whatever budgeting is an issue. How does this lead to budgeting? Budgeting, of course, is the basis for variance analysis later on. And so budgeting could be blaming later on, which is maybe not a very good example, but budgeting could also be a very good basis for discussions to improve. And this is the sense of using variances and the sense of budgeting having a starting point for discussing performance of a company. And performance is related to a plan and related to the budget plan. The problem with budgeting and responsibility accounting is that as a head of cost centers or as a head of profit centers, you might not have the full control of your costs. For example, when I was in the industry, I was responsible for the cost center of accounting and controlling. 80% was personnel. Okay, I could have ideas about whether to employ a little bit more or a little bit less people. This was not the problem, but a major issue was rent, for example. As being responsible for that cost center, I could not influence any rent because we were forced to be in a very nice building, which was quite expensive, of course, but that means the rent incurred in my cost center, but I had not any control about that because our building the decision was done years ago and not by myself. So the problem, one problem is that usually in cost centers and also in profit centers, many items incur where control of managers and responsibility of managers is difficult. Anyhow, yes, Tommy.
Could you just buy the building?
Pardon?
Could you just buy the building instead of renting?
Investment center? If I had the competence of deciding buying a building, but this was a building where the investment was very high, maybe more than 100 million. So I doubt You could, of course, but that decision, we did not rent it, but it was a group-owned building at that time, so that decision about rent or depreciation of buildings also was fixed cost, basically, and it was sunk at that time. Yeah, and that is why we have limited control sometimes over cost. So it is more an issue of information than an issue of control. And normally, again, responsibility accounting should exclude uncontrollable costs. This is an ideal. In practice, you will not find only cost reports where there is a full controllability by the respective responsibility centers. So, this was controllability and budgeting. We have discussed traditional budgeting, how to organize it, and now it's up to you. Discuss in groups, maybe we'll build groups of 4 or 6 people maximum, and you'll discuss what are potential disadvantages of this project, of this process. Traditional budgeting, and maybe you have some ideas to improve. So, traditional budgeting means doing and computing a master budget as we have done, and of course in a big organization it's a little bit more complicated than we have done last week. So think about, what are disadvantages of those processes? Up to you. Organize in groups. 10 minutes max.
Mày có tay tưởng mày biết cái gì không?
Other
Mày tiên là
approaches,
thầy hỏi ai tôi xem mà
better budgeting is not a
thầy hỏi
closed
ai
concept.
present
It's
review marketing.
many ideas to improve, to use better instruments, to use sometimes better processes, and to make the process more efficient and effective. Advanced budgeting is the optimization of the entire planning, also not fixed to any specific tools, but activity-based budgeting could one issue, or using benchmark could be an issue, or using instruments like the balanced scorecard. In budgeting, this would be comprised under the term of advanced budgeting, and then we'll have your approach, the beyond budgeting. What I will mention today is that the International Controlling Association, they have thought about budgeting and they have given a lot of recommendations. The summary you find here. If two of you are willing, I have uploaded an article. It's more than 50 pages, but if somebody could give a short summary next week about the ideas of the International Controllers Association about modern budgeting, you are welcome. It's either next week or the week after next week. I have been approached by some of you willing to present something. This is an opportunity to collect bonus points. Sure, I mean it's a little bit about first come first serve. But if you volunteer, sure, welcome. So I will not so much discuss this modern budgeting, and I'll leave the 10 minutes to you.
maximum là được 6 điểm cộng.
So the next chapter is about flexible budgeting. It means that flexible budgeting is not a new approach of budgeting. Flexible budgeting is basically variance analysis. And so the rest of the lecture will introduce variance analysis. And you're welcome to use your Excel tools I have uploaded on Moodle. because, well, it's about calculations of variance. Before we do that, we have a break of 1 hour. Like 18 minutes, so we'll meet at 10:20 again.
10, 20, 18 minutes.